Some of the most iconic places in Southeast Asia are on the UNESCO World Heritage List. They represent pristine environments, architectural marvels, ancient cultures and traditions. World Heritage listing is meant to safeguard these unique locations, but it also encourages millions of tourists who unwittingly accelerate their demise. I'm Ella Callan. This week on 101 East, we visit some of Southeast Asia's most wondrous and fragile areas to ask if heritage listing protects or destroys these ancient sites. By the time sunlight illuminates the famous towers of Angkor Wat, Cambodia's most famous tourist attractions are already filling with people. 6,000 tourists will visit the 12th century temples today. More than 2 million by year's end. Since the United Nations Education and Scientific Organization UNESCO enshrined Angkor on the World Heritage List 20 years ago, a well-trodden path has been worn here. Tranquility has long disappeared from the experience as more people join the tourist production line.
Angkor has one of the fastest growing tourist markets of any World Heritage site on the planet. In the year to date, we're 30% up on the visitation last year, and as more and more people come to experience this amazing place, there are increasingly challenges.
Overcrowding has damaged some of the temples. Angkor's World Heritage area stretches some 400 square kilometres, yet the tourists converge in the same places.
We are already at a stage with some of the more popular temples like Ta Prohm that during the busiest part of the day the congestion is unpleasant for those who are there, and there are physical consequences as well for the temple.
For countries like Cambodia, among the poorest in Southeast Asia, the UNESCO listing has been a vehicle to make vast amounts of money. It's an uncomfortable reality for UNESCO, which aims to conserve rare sites like Angkor.
We know we have no illusion, I would say. This is part of the game. But because of that, I can't say we have found the ideal solution. The thing is that the equation and the way to solve, in fact, this eradication of poverty linked to the enhancement of heritage is not an easy one.
The UNESCO listing has successfully created a buffer zone around Angkor's ancient temples. The rapidly expanding tourist city of Siem Reap is 7 kilometres away. But even at this distance, it's creating a deeper problem. Professor Nakagawa Takeshi is head of a Japanese-funded conservation project at the Bayon, the third most popular temple on the tourist trail.
Most serious problem is only from the earth. They took water from the earth, in the ground. That is very problem.
Siem Reap has grown faster than its water supply. The town can only supply 1/25 of what's needed each day for over 200 hotels and thousands of homes. Illegal pumps and wells are sucking up the underground water and destabilising the sandy soil on which the temples sit. Combined with the effects of deforestation and land clearing, the ground which has kept the temples steady for over 800 years is sinking.
Actually, it's a big problem for the heritage, especially Angkor Wat and Bayon. But it's a bit also difficult to limit tourists.
the once vast empire of Angkor survived on a complex irrigation system which is thought to have collapsed. Today it faces new water problems. An alternative supply is being sought for Siem Reap, but it may not be enough to keep up with tourist numbers. And limiting visitors is certainly not what the locals want. Tuk-tuk driver Sum Pala has lived in Siem Reap for 12 years. He earns less than $50 a month, and competition is fierce. When tourist numbers drop even slightly, it gets hard to survive.
Even in low season, we feel a big difference. If there are no tourists, it means we have no money. I need to pay my rent each month and feed my family, my children.
Away from the 5-star tourist hotels, Siem Reap remains the third poorest province in Cambodia. Half the population here lives below the poverty line, and less than 10% finish school. Ticket revenue from the temples is managed by a private company, Socomex, which has held the concession under secret terms since 1999. Revenue is estimated at over $40 million. Based on 2007 figures, 17% goes to Socomex, 68% to the Cambodian government, and just 15% to conservation. Locals are left to make ends meet any way they can.
I hope that my 2 children can work in one of the hotels if they are able to learn a language. It is much easier than working outside like me. They won't be so tired.
With the future of so many depending on a steady stream of visitors, the balance between conservation and tourism is a crucial one.
The site can take more visitors than it's getting at the moment. It's a question of deploying them differently so that their experience is increased, the deal for the local community is a better deal, and the overall site impacts are lessened.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
A new tourist plan is in the pipeline for Angkor. It will force authorities to consider tough measures like limiting tourist numbers and increasing ticket prices during peak times at the main temples.
We need to be better organized, but we need to talk a lot and to explain a lot and to share a lot and to see what is the point of convergence of all these different groups, knowing that the conservation of Angkor is not negotiable.
There are obvious downsides to the explosion in tourism here since World Heritage listing in 1992. But without it, things could possibly be worse. Certainly millions of foreign dollars wouldn't be pouring in to help with temple conservation. Other sites, arguably as important as Angkor and off the tourist trail, haven't been so lucky. A 4-hour drive northwest of Siem Reap, a hidden treasure is fighting for World Heritage status. Bante Chamar is little known, but is as archaeologically as important for historians as any of the Angkorian temples. Here you can wander through virtually deserted ruins, alone.
I was obviously struck by the fact that it's still very much in the jungle. It has that great Victorian romance. I mean, the British were famous for their Victorian romantic ruins, and I suppose that struck me immediately.
Architect John Sanday first visited Bante Chamar in 1996 when it was in army control after the fall of the Khmer Rouge. Since then, the temple has been badly looted, including 25 square metres of the historic bas-relief.
This is one of the prime examples, in fact. These are the famous 8 sections of Avalokitesvara, of which just these 2 are remaining. And the immediate next 4 were stolen, literally loaded onto a low loader and taken off to Bangkok. And you can see how they jackhammered the pieces off the back.
There are only 3 examples of bas-relief like this left in Cambodia and perhaps the world. This is a rare depiction of the Avalokitesvara, the Buddha of compassion. Protection would be one benefit of World Heritage status. Funding for restoration work would be another. With limited resources, a team has been working under the direction of the Global Heritage Fund to reinforce key areas of the ruins.
My work here at Bante Chamar is to use the expertise I have in joining stones back together. I have had many years' experience doing this at Bampun Temple in Angkor. So I'm using this knowledge to help restore parts of the temple to match the original shape. We've been developing our own techniques too.
Like a giant puzzle, stones from key parts of the temple are being scanned one by one, the images sent to Heidelberg University in Germany, where mathematicians are helping to put the pieces back together. Only important areas will be restored, like the bas-reliefs and the main tower, which was falling down. Most of the temple will be conserved as a partial ruin, with safe visitor access on a suspended platform above it. If the temple is placed on the World Heritage List, the team knows a flood of tourists will not be far behind.
Now we have a lot of services. We have a restaurant, transportation, ox carts and tractors. We have traditional music and we also have homestay. Local tour guides are undergoing training and learning English language as well. We started 1 year ago and now we are recruiting local tour guides who are living in this area.
Learning from the lessons of Angkor, Bante Chamar has a strong team of advocates trying to make sure the temple is ready for tourism.
I believe that with heritage listing, if they're not ready to receive visitors, tourists, that'll be the downfall of the whole complex, because it'll just get overrun. No one's actually started asking permission to build hotels, etc. But we are hoping that we can have sufficient influence on the local community to make them aware of the enormous value of this site.
Peaceful Bante Chamar may become an example of how to balance tourism and conservation in the future. From ancient cities to a living piece of heritage. The 700-year-old city of Luang Prabang is one of the last remnants of traditional life in Laos. Since 1995, when it was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, this sleepy, picturesque spot on the Mekong River has seen tourist numbers increase from 2,000 to over 250,000 each year. It's described in tourist books as a place where time has stood still. Traditions like the daily offering of food to monks continue, largely because of tourism. This is the conservation paradox faced by Luang Prabang. Visitor numbers far outnumber locals, even on a rainy morning, making the ceremony known as almgiving feel much less authentic. Monks end up giving away much of the rice collected on the main street or throwing it out for health reasons. But they continue the practice while being photographed by groups of tourists, as if in a zoo.
The tourism is number one. So that's why the government, especially Luang Prabang governors, they pay more attention to the tourists.
All elements of daily life in Luang Prabang are now sold as a tourist attraction. There's little privacy for the locals as they go about their everyday lives. Many monks end up learning English and leaving the temples to work in the tourist industry. The Mekong River provides the backbone for Luang Prabang, on which the area's cultural heritage and traditions are based. Along the river, mountains, caves and limestone formations define sacred sites and spiritual landmarks. Local authorities believe Luang Prabang can cope with double the current number of visitors before they need to start restricting tourism.
We want to get more high-end visitors, but number limit. For example, Luang Prabang can receive visitors per year not more than 400 to 500,000 visitors per year.
That means more people frequenting the historic main street, more restaurants, internet cafes and guest houses. It's a contentious issue, even within the government's Culture and Tourism Department. Those responsible for safeguarding heritage values say culture is the number one thing that travellers come to see here, and it must be preserved at all costs.
I think too many tourists is too dangerous for our custom. But for my opinion, we are thinking is a number in tourists should less, not increase, because very difficult for us to manage how to make appreciation our custom and our heritage.
Despite education campaigns for tourists, tranquility evaporates once the tour buses descend. Guangxi Waterfall is one of the most popular natural attractions near Luang Prabang. In conservative Lao culture, this display of flesh is not the done thing. Locals stay away or tolerate the tourists bathing here, but one of the main concerns raised is swimwear being worn back in town. Tourism has become the lifeblood of Luang Prabang, but it's also the country's third biggest income generator, responsible for some 500,000 jobs and about 8% of gross domestic product. In fact, conserving and marketing Laos's heritage is going to be the ticket to its future. Off the main street, without tourists around, we find Thongkun Sutivale and her mother preparing offerings for the monks. No longer just the traditional sticky rice, they give packaged biscuits as well. This is the modern-day side of life in a heritage city. They sold their home in Luang Prabang's heritage area 2 years ago to take advantage of rising property prices and move closer to family outside town. But they still return to their old street, where their former house is now a construction site.
The lifestyle changing because of people coming in is also happen around the world. So and especially in the Laos, we are a small country and the country that start to develop, and that's why one thing is good to have the heritage or the UNESCO to have the set up the rule. So this exhibition we talk about monks.
As incomes, education and health improve, elements of traditional life are no longer necessary. Thongkun has founded an ethnic museum to safeguard traditions and crafts of Laos's distinct tribal groups. She's optimistic about her town's future coexisting with tourism. The museum encourages new generations to learn their ethnic crafts to sell to tourists, even though there's no need for them anymore in village life. It's a source of income for young people and has also become a source of pride. These skills would otherwise be lost to Luang Prabang forever.
I know that it's changed to negative and for positive, and for what I feel is positive is more than negative.
Perhaps no longer the place where time stood still, Luang Prabang is bringing the past with it into the modern world. In neighbouring Vietnam, a natural heritage site presents a different set of challenges. Halong Bay on the country's east coast has been inscribed twice on the UNESCO Heritage List for its exceptional beauty and geomorphic features. Famous for its picturesque limestone cast towers and natural beauty, 6 million people visit the bay each year, 2 million of them foreigners. It's Vietnam's most popular tourist attraction, with thousands of boats cruising its emerald waters.
The sites are recognized for what we call the universal outstanding value. That means that there has been a whole scientific process to prove how this site is unique to the world, is completely different from other sites, and has something very special towards the world. And that has to be preserved. You cannot lose that.
Less scientific is the government's latest strategy to promote Halong. Tourists have voted it one of the new 7 Wonders of Nature, an online marketing initiative designed to promote popular tourist destinations.
Tourism brings a lot of revenue for Quang Ninh province and Halong Bay itself, but also we are facing some challenges in the protection of the area, environmental and social protection of the area.
While the government is aware of the pressures on Halong Bay from mass tourism, they continue to encourage it. A visit to one of the area's many caves shows this is a well-oiled tourist machine. Cheesy music is played as boats converge near the entrance. People pay their money and pile into the cave. Hardly a serene experience, but a well-managed photo opportunity that keeps the crowds happy. Other caves remain off-limits to tourists for preservation. One benefit of concentrating visitors in the same areas. It's hard to believe that life has not changed completely for the locals in Halong Bay. These communities were once made up of families living on small fishing boats which moved around the bay. Today, their floating houses remain stationary. At 101 years old, Nguyen Van Noi is Halong's oldest resident. His family have been here 5 generations. In his lifetime, he can hardly fathom the changes that have unfolded.
Our village is the most beautiful in Quang Ninh. We have Halong Province, Halong City, but the most beautiful is our village. When I was young, we didn't have good houseboats like this. Today we have a place to grow the fish, and all the kids can go to school.
Lifting people out of poverty has been the most important change, he says, for the 3,000 people who continue to live in Halong Bay today. Lifestyles have had to change. Instead of fishing on the ocean where fish stocks have been declining, fish are now farmed in aquaculture pens below the floating houses. Increasing local income is key to maintaining the success of tourism here.
Which is very important because the local people need to continue living there. Some of their livelihood is affected by these tourists. You don't have as much fish as you used to have before. The shrimp raising may become affected by polluted waters. So all that needs to be taken into consideration as well. That one of the things we do need to push is for the livelihoods, local livelihoods, to receive benefits as well.
Halong Bay's World Heritage Area is some 1,500 square kilometres, so it is possible to get away from the crowds. Tourist boats are being encouraged to take different routes, reducing stress on the overburdened parts of Halong Bay. Threats could also come from the growing city of Halong nearby, which relies on shipping, coal mining and mineral extraction. While World Heritage status continues to draw increasing numbers of tourists from around the globe to Southeast Asia, the features that make these sites unique are under threat. Developing economies will focus on the business opportunities heritage listing represents. But unless conservation is managed carefully, the very sites and their money-making potential will be lost for generations to come.